The story takes place in a kingdom where we are met with a princess. She wishes to meet her father, the Majesty, as there seems to be a serious situation revolving around her that requires utmost urgency. However, she was denied entry. Confused why her father would do this, she would head outside only to find the maids and servants gossiping about the situation. Seeing no one to turn to, she would leave the area. The following night, she stumbled across a lake. Staring into her reflection, she begins to break down. The princess has a reputation that leads people to talk and point fingers, but even when others gave her a hard time, her father would bring comfort. But deep down, her true desire was to be loved. Now wanting to rid the pain and sorrow, the princess ventures out deep into the lake. The story switches to the modern world, introducing a character who grew up as an orphan adopted by foster parents. She would strive for their approval by studying diligently, graduating, and reaching a level of success. However, the foster parents would soon abandon her, leaving the debt through the use of gambling and drugs. This incident led her to switch jobs, as loan sharks were now involved in the matter. However, even under these circumstances, she endured, knowing that there was someone to come home to. However, upon witnessing a proposal from the man she loves to another woman, everything begins to crash. Wondering where it all went wrong, striving her best, she truly desired love. Not checking her surroundings, she would run past the stoplight and meet a tragic end. However, though she desired love, she wanted to live. That is when the reappearance of the princess and the orphan would meet, now emerging out of the lake. However, it seems that the character now known as Minso would be reincarnated into the body of Princess Helia of the Arson Kingdom. A week passes and Minso, now known as Helia, accepts her new reality in this world. With the help of Helia's memories, she quickly learns of the situation surrounding her. Helia's mother was a maid of unknown origin, which sparked rumors about her royal status. When she was 5, however, her mother would pass away, leaving Helia scorning remarks, to which we begin to see from one of the maids, Anne. Though Helia, despite these circumstances, would not sit idly by and take measures to ensure that the past and present are different moving forward. Now reaffirming their status, Anne is exclusively Helia's personal errand maid. Helia will be informed of an exam tomorrow to study for. Uninterested, punishment would be delivered on someone other than her in the process. The instructor will inform Helia to study hard to be just like her sister, Princess Bianca. With this in mind, the topic moves over to math. Helia, with her knowledge, will get a perfect score. Impressed with both, the instructor is pleased with the results and concludes today's lesson, though in Bianca's case she wasn't expecting Helia to score higher, which didn't sit well with her. Unfortunately, this will result in Helia being accused of having the head maid provide the answers for her. With Helia taken aback by the situation, she knows that denying it wouldn't work due to her credibility and apologizes for the incident. Knowing Bianca was behind this, Helia plans to approach the head maid, Bella, who was involved. Now confronted, Helia finds that Bella has been taking small amounts of her earnings each month. With this known, Helia hopes the two will develop an understanding moving forward, to which Bella would agree. Switching to Princess Bianca, she would visit her mother to request the removal of Helia from her sight. Though this would favor the mother, Vivian, as she is aware of the humiliation of Helia's mother stealing her love, and will devise a plan in the process. Now over to Helia. Everyone is preparing for the birthday banquet for Princess Bianca and Princess Helia. Helia would ask a maid to prepare a gift for her. Fast forward to the banquet. With the presence of the king and queen, Helia finds the event more of a formality. With the maid delivering the gift of tea, both Princess Bianca and Helia would exchange gifts. Looking for a place to rest, Helia goes to the balcony only to find a noble boy. Before Helia could speak, an incident took place that involved Princess Bianca collapsing to the floor. Moments prior to the incident, Bianca was presenting the gift to her social group. Before continuing, her mother would request tea time together. Weirdly enough, the maid who picked out the tea for Bianca would be shown present, confirming the contents of the gift. Vivian would proceed to tell Bianca to drink. Bianca, feeling uncertain, would dismiss the offer. However, her mother would not take no for an answer. With no choice in the matter, Bianca would drink, but immediately could tell that this was no ordinary tea, and her mother knew that. This brings us back to the present, concluding that Bianca was poisoned. The king immediately knew that Helia was being framed as the culprit and would have her royal status stripped and confined at Daisy's palace. With this, he added a request to his butler to watch over Helia at the palace. Switching to Vivian, we see that the culprit was none other than the maid who did it in exchange for her father's territory, though this promise would be short-lived. Visiting Bianca, she feels confused about the methods her mother took to complete her goal that endangered her well-being. However, such complaints were dismissed. Upon hearing the situation regarding Helia's status, Bianca would be relieved, though her mother could tell that she was being protected. Now arriving at Daisy's palace, Helia is baffled by the situation, wanting to forget her past and live peacefully, but she is instead met with the reality of events that took place. However, she no longer plans to sit still. With the palace being originally a library for a concubine, the place has been abandoned a century after the death of its previous owner. Starting from scratch, with the introduction of the new assigned butler, Sebastian, Helia decides to come up with a way to get her comeback. With little information about this world, she would need knowledge, but more importantly, power. Taking notice that food supplies were still sent here by the palace, Helia intends to utilize this opportunity to develop an idea of starting a business. With experience selling portions of goods in her previous life, Helia devises a plan to find an exit out of the palace. Unsure of whether to trust Sebastian, she waits for the night and sneaks into the kitchen to find a secret passage that leads outside. Now finding her route, she returns only to find Sebastian expecting her. Asking her whereabouts, Helia, unsure at first, decides to trust Sebastian, who has only treated her with kindness. With Sebastian's support, conditions were made for Helia to study and learn self-defense. Fast forward now to the market. With hair trimmed in disguise, Helia proceeds to sell rations, selling out portions on the first day. Next week, however, Helia takes note of everyone feeling troubled, with one person informing her she should return home. Moments later, a group of people shows up to collect payment from the markets, even if it involves force. Taking notice of Helia, they will ask her to pay up, with Helia refusing, stating she has no money. Though things would take a turn for the worse, as Helia's description would match someone's interests. Knowing what that implies, Helia wastes no time leaving to escape the group. Helia couldn't go in the direction of the palace as that would breed trouble. Instead, she used every obstacle to slow down the group, leaving them behind. However, just when the coast is clear, she would be ambushed by that same group. Waking up, Helia notices that she is in a cell where the two people informed her that this place is a slave market. With the organization known as Instinct, this order controls the underworld of the capital. That said, as mentioned earlier, the person whose interest got Helia in here is the person we see before us. Now being escorted and arriving to meet said person, Helia would request that her chains be undone and proceed to smash a vase into the person's skull. As this happens, while Helia begins her escape, a fire follows suit, increasing her chances. However, finding the exit becomes a tedious task. With wounds from the debris, Helia would continue until one of the people from the group would spot her. Now determined to finish it, Helia, showing no fear, would deliver a powerful kick, followed by a bite to break free from the person's grasp. Now, with the fire enclosing, Helia conjures up a plan by charging at a pillar to redirect the falling debris onto the person, crushing him in the process. With the determination to survive, Helia manages to reach her destination and returns to the palace. After the incident, Helia would listen to Sebastian's stern warnings and prevent her from going out until she reached full recovery. With Helia realizing the events that took place, she searches for ways to acquire power through spirit summoning, with water being a success. Switching over to what appears to be the person who survived debris, recalling back, he encountered a masked individual who appears to have started the fire. Going for the attack, he is soon outclassed, which leads us to the present of having an agenda of finding Helia and the masked individual. A month passes, and Helia, after a full recovery, returns to the market to sell rations. With the rain pouring in, Helia prepares to head back, that is, until she bumps into a familiar face. Now confronted by the group, they intend to finish off Helia from the prior incident. However, just when things were looking grim, the masked individual would appear, making short work of the enemies. Seeing Helia defended by the masked individual, Scarface would use the opportunity to attack Helia. With no time to think, the masked individual would rush in, taking the attack, protecting Helia. Now injured, with nowhere left to run, Helia stands firm, proclaiming she won't die like this. This resolve alone would cause a phenomenon to occur that would awaken her spirit summon, slowing down time as a contract would be established between Helia and the spirit king of water, Alam. With time resumed and the contract settled, the spirit king would make his appearance. Wasting no time, Helia would tell Alam to take care of the guys, but Alam would refuse, having no interest in the matter. As the two argue about the situation, Scarface would find this pretty annoying and proceed to attack Alam. Now having a reason, Alam would remind Helia not to mistake him for a tool and would begin the offense on Scarface. Although powerful as a spirit, this takes a toll on Helia, causing Alam's power to diminish. Seeing this, the masked individual stepped in to take care of the rest. With Helia passing out due to the excess of power wielded by Alam, Alam would return to the spirit world, and Scarface, seeing an opportunity, would try to finish off Helia. However, the masked individual would not only take care of the group, but also Scarface once and for all. As days passed, Helia would wake up to find that she had returned to the palace. Sebastian, relieved to see Helia's condition, would insist on not going outside. Helia, knowing her circumstances, expresses her resolve to build her influence to establish a standing where she can only rely on herself to move forward. Hearing this, Sebastian can't help but respect her decision, but on the condition that she can find someone trustworthy within a month. With Helia thinking of who to rely on, Alan would make an appearance and express his worries about the incident that took place. Having an interest in the human realm, Alan would ask Helia to show him around. With Helia not allowed to go outside the palace, she develops an idea of introducing Sebastian to Spirit Master Lamb as a trustworthy person. Sebastian, seeing this, will ask Helia if the person is trustworthy, and with Helia's approval, Sebastian permits her to go outside the palace. Now at the market, Alam couldn't hide the excitement of exploring different shops, though he would have to cut back due to reckless spending. Right before heading back, they encounter a scene where someone is begging for a potion, but was denied. Alam, curious if potions were of value, would learn from Helia that potions indeed are produced by the magic tower and the temple, making them a valuable item. Surprised at the response, Alan would tell Helia he can make potions just as easily, which immediately caught her attention. By bringing a barrel to test this, Alan would remind Helia that he'll use enough power that doesn't drain all her mana, as should this happen, she could die. Now knowing how the power works, they fill up the barrel. Although reckless, Helia would cut her hand and see that the potion brought great results. This discovery would spark ideas of a new way to make a profit. Now putting her plan in motion, Helia would begin her advertisement to sell vitality potions for 1 silver. This would attract a crowd of customers as the effects would be visible, resulting in a successful first day. While cleaning up, the person from earlier at the scene would ask if there were any potions left available. With one left, Alan would deliver it to him in the process, wishing him well. As days passed, the boy now known as Clyde would stop by at the end of the day to buy a potion for his recovering sister. However, the sister would visit to return the item, not wanting to be a burden. A situation in which Helia notices that both are sacrificing themselves to save the other. What drove them was poverty. Still, Helia did what she could to ensure Clyde's sister recovered. Switch to a person who has developed an interest in Helia's vitality potions. After finding no background information on both individuals, his curiosity about her grows. Business would continue to flourish for Helia as word would spread, attracting people from neighboring territories. One in particular would arrive from the Garian Merchant Guild. a man by the name of Warren. Interested in meeting Elam, Helia will respond that he isn't present as it is closing hours. Warren, in response, will gift her some food each day during closing hours in hopes of meeting the spirit master. This method works as Elam, wary at first, would quickly appear, won over by food. Switching to Warren's residence, his interest would move over to Helia as he concludes that she might be the one in charge of the business. Finding no background on either individual, he grows more curious. Now over to Helia, she will also mention that Warren seems like a trustworthy person, but knows that there is an enemy within their guild. Noticing that someone is watching them, Elam would pinpoint their location and catch them in the act. With the young man leading them to an information spot, the manager of the guild escorts them to the person we saw prior, who had an interest in Helia. This person is the guild master Kien, an elf who specializes in reading the hearts of others through the eye of truth. Helia, realizing this, knows that this method is for his safety, as the nations take a hostile stance against other races. Now earning trust, Helia discusses business on finding information regarding Warren and the Garian Merchant Guild. What was learned is that the head of the guild, Ashton, is near passing. He plans to promote Warren as the next head instead of his son Josh. This would bring trouble as Josh overheard this and would rip up the will proclaiming his spot as head of the company. Fast forward during closing hours, Helia, knowing this, would inform Warren to be wary of Josh and that next visit she'll make a deal with him. Switching over to Josh, we see that even if his spot is secured, Josh plans to finish off Warren for good. Overhearing this, Warren's assistant, Ernie, would inform him of what was heard from Josh. Warren, finding this hard to believe, would visit Josh to ask him about the matter. However, before he could ask, Josh would schedule a meetup at their usual spot at the tavern. The following night, Warren begins to contemplate the words of Ernie and Helia about Josh, but brushing the notion aside, before he arrived at the destination, he is ambushed by cloaked figures and taken to a cell. Regaining consciousness, he finds that Josh was behind the events that took place. His reason for this runs deep, as comparisons have been made since childhood, even now. When the Forge Will was announced that Josh was selected as head of the guild, the people were confused, expecting Warren to be a better candidate for a leader. This drove Josh to the current events that are happening. Feeling that his entire life has been denied, he plans to take Warren out of the picture. Switching to Helia and Lam, they notice that Warren hasn't been visiting, with Helia expecting this outcome. Time passes, and we see Ernie visiting the tavern, only to find Warren gambling his life away. After the incident between Josh, Warren would quit his position from the Garian Guild and not speak on the matter that took place, even to Ernie, who is aware of what happened. Refusing to return and remaining stubborn to the end, Ernie would eventually find Helia and Elam, informing them of the situation. Helia, in response, would head to the tavern as the promise of a deal was made between the two. Now arriving, with Warren refusing the topic of a deal, Helia instead makes a bet. Knowing his situation, she offers assistance in getting back at Josh. The result is Helia being the winner with a royal straight flush. Afterwards, Elam would heal Warren and discuss their next steps in creating a trading guild. Noticing that this is Helia's plan from the start, Warren couldn't help but be impressed. Now with the two establishing a connection, a store would eventually be created for the new guild, Elrad, using the opportunity for Helia to have a place to sell vitality potions. Now, with the assistance of Warren and Ernie handling sales, while Helia and Elam focus on potion making, business is progressing smoothly. With Helia thinking of recruiting more people, the sister of Clyde, known as Ilya, would arrive to request help regarding her brother. With Clyde borrowing money to treat his sister, a debt has to be paid. In this case, Ilya would arrive along with Helia to repay Clyde's debt back with interest. With the siblings reunited, in order for Clyde to repay Helia, Helia instead tells them that they can be hired to work in her shop. And with that, we are now caught up. By the time this video releases, there will probably be more chapters. Credits will be in the description as well. And if you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, and click on notifications. That said, novelty out.